I'd like to welcome everybody to the Candidates Forum. Tonight we're going to be speaking with candidates for 4 different offices, 2 in the county and 1 state office and 1 federal office. We have the Circuit Court Clerk, which will be our first 2 candidates, and we'll also be talking with the candidates for Presiding Commissioner for St. John County, also for State Representative for District 115, which is the Kinsey precinct in the county, and also representatives for the 8th District of Missouri in the U.S. House of Representatives. Tonight's event is sponsored by the University of Missouri Extension, which is also our host tonight, and by St. Genevieve Community Access Television, Channel 991, which will be showing the rebroadcasts on television and also on the internet at stgentv.com. And also sponsored by the St. Genevieve Herald, which will have complete coverage of this forum and biographies of all the candidates in the October 22nd edition coming up next week. My name is Toby Carrig. I'm the editor of the Herald, and I will be serving as one of the panelists along with Tish Johnson, Community Development Specialist for the University of Missouri Extension.
For 2 more weeks.
For 2 more weeks. I'd like to thank you all for attending. I'd like to thank the candidates who are here tonight for offering their service in office and for participating in this event. We'll begin with the Circuit Court Clerk candidates, which are Democrat Diana Grass and Independent candidate Marvin Pete Papin. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then when the questions are asked, they'll have 1 minute to respond to each question, in addition to 1 minute for a closing statement. The questions are known only to Tish and myself. The candidates have not seen them. We'll begin with the opening statement, and we'll have Ms. Grass for 2 minutes.
Let me jump in here real quick, Toby, if I may, just because I'm keeping time over here and you're sitting kind of to the side. I may or may not use this, so we'll try to monitor the time as best we can, but keep in mind that time monitoring is happening over there.
Okay.
So then, Ms. Grass, you have an opening statement for us?
Yes, I do. Hi, my name is Diana Grass, and I'm running for the office of the Circuit Clerk. I am married to Thomas Buzz Grass Jr., and we've been married for 39 years. We have 2 children, Angie, married to Shannon Inman, and Amy, married to Darryl Foff. We have 3 grandchildren, Chance, Braden, and Callie. I graduated from Valley High School and later went on to attend Southeast Missouri State University, where I earned a Bachelor of Science degree. I am a member of the St. Genevieve Democratic Club and also a member of the Missouri Professional Association of Court Clerks. I am also a member of our local St. Genevieve Parish. I have been interested in running for the position, but our current Circuit Clerk, Carol Steiger, has done an outstanding job, and I never intended to run against her. So when she said that she finally decided that she wanted to retire, I stepped up and said I will run. And so that's what brought me to this forum today. I feel like I am the right candidate for the job because I'm qualified. I have 16 years of experience. I have a lot of experience in different areas of the office, not only in juvenile and criminal and civil, but also in accounting and probate. For the last 4 years, I've had an emphasis in probate because I'm the current probate clerk. And our jobs are always and ever changing, and I am also interested in continuing to learn new things. And that is a must in this position. And so I'm glad to be here and very excited for the outlook of 2015, in which we will be experiencing a new outlook in the court system, and that is electronic filing. And I would appreciate your vote on November 14th, and I would thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Papin.
My name is Marvin Pete Papin, and on November 27th this year I will be 78 years old. I'm a candidate for the office of County Clerk. I'm married to Carol A. Jokers Papin. For the past 52 years, we have 3 married children and 6 grandchildren. I'm one of 7 children born to the Catherine and Alfred Papin, who are both deceased. I attended Valley Grade School and a graduate of Valley High School. In 1955 was when I graduated. My first place of employment was with the St. Genevieve City Department, and then later went to work for Mississippi Lime Plant. On March 5th, 1959, I entered the United States Air Force. While on active duty, I was able to travel to many air bases in the United States and overseas. After discharge in 1966, I was hired at McDonnell Aircraft, working in security, and had the honor and pleasure of being a chauffeur for Mr. J.S. McDonnell himself and his family and other dignitaries. In 1973, I started my career with the U.S. Postal Department in St. Genevieve as a letter carrier, in which I retired 23 years later in 1997. The different organizations that I'm a member of are the AMVETS Post, the Fraternal Order of Eagles, the St. John Elks, the Knights of Columbus, the American Legion Post 150 in St. Genevieve for 49 years. I have been elected to and served as commander of the American Legion for 5 different times. I have volunteered my services for many programs such as Legion Baseball, care packages for the soldiers in harm's way, Veterans Helping Veterans, and I'm presently involved in volunteering my time with the Nutrition Center. I'm a retired volunteer fireman, and if elected to the office of Circuit Clerk, I will do my best to serve the voters of St. Genevieve County.
Thank you very much. Toby, do you have an opening question for us?
I do. My first question will be, why are you running for office? And we'll begin with Ms. Grass again.
I am running for office because I feel like I am qualified for the position. I am interested in the position, and like I said before, I'm excited about 2015 and beyond because of the electronic filing, which will basically change the way that we do our working system right now, and we will no longer be using paper but electronic resources. And so for that reason, I feel like I'm the right candidate for the job. I have the knowledge and experience that I've acquired. I have a strong work ethic. I have been taking classes since I started my position in 1998, both conferences away and also classes on the internet and webinars. This year alone, I've attended 3 conferences. I've attended one in Jefferson City for the Missouri Professional Association of Court Clerks, and I attended 2 at Lake of the Ozarks already for court clerks in general. And so my desire for learning keeps going, and I also feel like I am dedicated and reliable, and I work well with the staff. We have an excellent staff, and I think that we all work well together, and it will be an exciting future for us.
Okay. Mr. Payton.
What brought me here was I'm protesting the system brought forth by the statutes of Missouri that limit the time span that let the voters of St. Genevieve City and County have to file for a public office. A 3-day extension does not fit the needs of St. Genevieve or St. Genevieve County. A 30-day extension probably would be a lot better applied for the voters. With one newspaper in town like we have here, a radio station, a lot of times you can't pick it up, and the time span of 3 days was just ridiculous. As you can see, I put very little effort in my campaigning. No signs, but I believe that voters of St. Genevieve that are dissatisfied will see fit to vote the way they want to. I would like to thank the audience and the people that are listening to me here tonight, and the Foreign Committee and the audience for letting me talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Payton. I recognize we do have some unusual circumstances for this election, but we still have a few questions.
Sure.
Okay, so what do you think the duties of the office are?
About the duties, I have no idea. I do know this. I know that Carol Steiger and her office have did an unblemished work record, and they're very good. I'm not here looking for a job. I'm 78 years old, but I'd like to see the statutes in Missouri changed for the reason that we can't get into a dilemma like we've had before, and that's in any office. I don't care which office we go to. If we could get a 30-day extension, we get the people that are representing us in Jeff City to think it over and try to get where everybody's going to be satisfied with this. It's not a good idea to have a 3-day extension like we had.
Thank you. Ms. Grass, could you tell us a little bit about the responsibilities of the office, the duties of the office?
Sure, the duties of the office are to meet the needs of the public, and we handle the various cases. So for the most part, people that come into the office aren't coming in for a warm, fuzzy, happy feeling. They usually have a traffic ticket, or they have some kind of a circuit case filed against them. So we're there to meet their needs and to help them out, but our job is to file the paperwork and keep everything in proper order, whether it's civil, criminal, juvenile, paternity. So in the office, we have various duties because it's very important to keep an accurate record because those records are very important to the outcome of people's lives in general. And for that reason, as I stated before, that I think we have an excellent staff and everybody is very dedicated and reliable and functions at a high level so that we keep the work updated and try to get everything into the system as soon as possible for anybody that needs to check on different various records.
All right, thank you. And I apologize for that timer going off early.
That's all
that
right.
was definitely not at a minute. Toby, do you have something?
Sure. Since both of you do appear on the ballot in November, and there's a chance that either of you could end up in office, how would you say how prepared you are to conduct the duties of the office if elected?
Good me.
So we'll start with Ms. Grass.
I think I am prepared for the duties of the office. I've been learning. We've all been trying to do some cross-training to prepare for next year. I've already been involved in a lot of the major accounting in the office. Judge Inman and I have already started working with the e-bench for the past year. We've all been scanning in preparation for the future electronic filing, and we continue to just do our jobs every day to the fullest ability and the best that we can do for the people.
Great, thank you. Mr. Papin?
Well, I have no idea what that job's about, let me tell you. And I'm not here, like I said, I'm not here to get a job. I'm here to try to protest the fact that the extension time that the statutes are written up for is strictly unreal. So, but I'm going to tell the people that I've known Carol Steiger for years, and we've been friends. And Diana, I've delivered mail to their houses, and they've got a beautiful family. I have nothing against either one of them for what has been taking place and everything like that. But if we can get a change, I'll be happy. I'm not worried. People ask me, what would you do if you ever got the job? I said, well, I'd be like Carol Steiger 26 years ago, be green as a greenhorn. But believe me, when I come March, April, May, I'm going crappie fishing. I don't care what the governor would say. So that's it.
Mr. Papin, I want to understand your position. Is it that you would like people who are unhappy with that 3-day situation to vote for you as a protest?
That's right, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear there. Toby, do we have any further questions for our candidates? I think we know where they stand. All right, let's start with some closing statements. If there's anything further that you would like to tell the voters.
Yeah, Mr. Papin.
Mr. Papin, please. Sorry.
Well, I just want to thank you people for coming. Thank the panel here, and I wish you the best of luck in the world.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Ms. Grass, final statement?
I would just like to tell the voters that I do not oppose the 3-day extension. I think it would be a good idea to extend that period. And back to the job at hand, though, I feel like I am very qualified for this position. I am reliable and dedicated, hardworking, have good organizational skills. I would put in 40, 50, 60 hours, whatever's needed each week as we prepare for the electronic filing, which, as I indicated before, will be a major change. And I would follow the recommendations of the Office of the State Courts Administrator in carrying out the plan and implementing it, and so that we would have a smooth transition into the future. I would appreciate your vote, and thank you again for coming.
All right, next we have our candidates for presiding commissioner for St. Genevieve County. We have Democrat and incumbent Gary Nelson and Republican challenger Kenny Williams. And we'll begin with the 2-minute opening statement. First for Mr. Nelson.
My name is Gary Nelson. I've lived in St. Genevieve for the last 53 years. I appreciate the opportunity to serve the community the last 10 years. Before that, 9 years on the R2 school board. The last 3 years I've served as presiding commissioner. I'm running for re-election this year. We got a lot of work to do yet. We've got a lot of roads to pave. My main goals is to keep the county's budget under control. As most office holders know, I check the budget first of every month to make sure everybody's within their budget. Economic development, creating jobs is one of my #1 priorities. I've got 2 good commissioners to work with that's not afraid to step up and make tough decisions. It's not as easy as it seems. Every decision you make, somebody's got some complaint about it, regardless of what you do. There's always those who don't like your decisions, so you just have to learn to live with it. That's basically all I got for an opening statement. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Williams, you have an opening statement for us.
Yeah, I'm Kenny Williams. I'm running for presiding commissioner. I've been married to Donna Kurtz Williams for 37 years, owner of self-employed 37 years as manager and owner of Williams Construction and Excavating, vice chairman of the St. Genevieve County Fair Board, chairman of the St. Gen Area Center for Life, director of Men's Prayer Breakfast up at First Baptist Church, member of Southeast Missouri Regional Planning Commission on Air Quality Committee, and chairman of the Haney and Oldstone Cemetery, and a member of the Chamber of Commerce. And I led the way in organizing the Missouri's largest waste tar collection in the state of Missouri in April of 2011. And I had a lot of volunteers that participated in that. It was all volunteer. And we collected, if it was all equivalent to car tires, the DNR told me it would have been 83,000 tires. So it was really appreciated by the people of the county and the ones that had tires. They had been accumulating for many years and they didn't know what to do with them, and we was very successful there. And I'm a candidate for commissioner because county road dust bothers me, for one thing, and I believe we need to accelerate at the rate that we're covering the dust on our county roads. At the rate we're going, it will take a minimum of 12 and a half years to cover all of our roads. And some of the projects in the county, matter of fact, a lot of the projects in the county kind of bother me. They put a new bridge on Hennick Road, and when I first seen it, I thought, why did they build it so low? Why not raise it a couple of more feet? And whenever I get to talking about the people that own property there, they had the same thing to say. I remember Lawrence and Cutoff Road, when that new bridge was put on there, and the commission, that was before Gary's time possibly, but the commission went out there for a bridge opening, and there were people there to protest it because it was built too low. And there was an older gentleman got washed off that bridge and lost his life. Then the bridge they put on Karen Road a few years ago is built right in a curve, and it's difficult to cross with a long truck. It should have been moved down the hill some. I'm just getting started, Tish.
I know you are, and I know it's going to be reining you in a little bit. Well, let's do this. Let's start with our first question about roads and bridges, because that is a big concern for local voters. How are we doing, and what should we be doing differently? What are we going to do the next 4 years? And let's start with Mr. Nelson.
Well, to pave roads, it takes money. It takes about $100,000, excuse me, about $100,000 a mile. We paved about 9 miles of road, with about 2 miles of that being chip and seal this year. We're trying to use chip and seal to keep the dust down. It won't last as long as asphalt, but it does get people out of dust. We realize about $550,000 out of our half-cent sales tax. The rest of the money comes from CART funds. There is a lot of bridges that's dangerous in the county. When we build bridges, we're not building them to say that they'll never be topped with water. We're building them to replace these real shallow, low-water slabs where just a moderate rain will keep people from getting across them. On the bridge, like the bridge Kenny talked about, if we would raise that bridge another 3 feet, we'd have to replace about a quarter-mile road on both sides of it. That would have made it, if you raise that road 3 feet, that's going to make it so expensive it wouldn't be able to afford to do any paving. So we try to stretch the dollar as far as we can. It's very limited funds. Every time you see the oil prices go up, asphalt goes up. So it's just not as easy as you think to go out and pave 110 miles of road is about what we got left. So,
Mr. Nelson, are you saying that the road policy will continue as is?
I don't see any reason to change it. I mean,
Okay.
you can't spend money you don't have.
Just wanted to be clear. All right, Mr. Williams, go.
So actually, the bridge on Hennick Road could have been raised, and you wouldn't have had to raise that much road. I do excavating all the time, and I understand his point that the road would have to be raised, but only a short distance. The elevation would be higher than another 3 feet. And also, there's a new bridge planned on Karen Road again, and I went out and reviewed that site. The end of it over toward the east needs to be moved down the stream about another 30 to 40 feet to make it to where it's easier to approach the bridge. And what I would like to see, how tall is that bridge going to be? There's some people living back there, and if the water gets up and they have an emergency, a fire or anything, are they going to be able to get across there? And I would like to see the county have a public showing of the project before it's approved, so that you get input from the neighbors and the people that live there and from us taxpayers. So I'd like to see that bridge before it's approved. And on the he jumped over to the road paving. Actually, in August of 2010, the paving tax was passed, and in 2013, it brought in $880,774.14. And the special roads brought in $78,795.96. I'm told we have 224 miles, .24 of roadway, 77.4 of special road. That leaves a balance of 146.84. That's county road. And I had a couple of different figures 2 years ago. I asked how many miles of road are unpaved, and they told me 122. And I asked them a few days ago, and they said 150. So the figures don't add up that I've been told from there as far as the amount of road being paved. But I estimate there's about 100 miles of road to go, and they're paving 8 miles per year, which is going to take us another 12 and a half years to stop the dust. Now, if I got time here real quick, I went to the DN.
You don't, but let me ask you this.
I need to follow up on some many.
Okay, we'll give you the opportunity to do that, but I want to ask you, Mr. Williams, first of all, are you advocating for paving additional miles or doing something with additional miles?
Oh,
And
the-
if so, how do you propose to pay for those?
The plan that I would like to see is that we chip and seal all the roads that are dusty yet to get them covered. And if we chip and seal them, then we'll find the weak spots in the road before we pave them, and we won't have our paving failing as much. And the shelter workshop's going to take over the recycling center, and the commission was given the the recycling center $67,000 to $70,000 a year. And once the shelter workshop takes it over, there'll be additional money there that maybe we could use for that. And there's different areas that I believe that I could come up with additional funding to get this done. Dust is a problem, and I'd like to share what the DNR says about dust.
Okay, let's come back to that. Let's give Mr. Nelson a chance to respond.
Well, Kenny's right on the total figure that we collected from our road tax, but to get it passed, we had to guarantee the city of St. Genevieve 23.5% of that, the city of St. Mary 1.5% of that, the city of Bloomsdale 1.5% of that, and the Special Road District 16% of that. So that leaves us with about $550,000 on an average year. We don't get that whole $850-something thousand dollars. We had to do that in order to get the tax passed. So that's, as far as, chipping and sealing, it costs us about $22,000 to do a chip and seal. We're hoping it lasts 3 to 4 years in the real dusty areas. It's a temporary fix. Some of the real dusty areas, we've done that this year as a trial basis. We've done one about 8 years ago up where you live, up on French Village Road, and it lasted 2 years. So to go out and pave the whole county gravel roads with chip and seal, and they start lasting 2 and 3, 4 years, is that a good economical decision?
Just a quick question for you regarding roads. Do either of you foresee using any kind of indebtedness to pay for any road programs in the future?
No. I don't think the county should go in debt any further than what we are with our jail project. Our CART funds from the state are falling off because more cars are more economical than they used to be. Cars used to get 20 miles a gallon, now it gets 30. You got electric cars coming out. That's where we get the most of our money is from the fuel tax. If that fuel tax, people buy less gas, we get less money. In fact, it's been dropping every year the last 3 or 4 years. So you promise to pay back a debt. Well, you got to make sure you let that money continue coming in to pay it off.
Okay, Mr. Williams, the indebtedness question?
So I would be in favor of going in debt to pay for it because of the danger of the dust and what it does to people. There's an air quality permit that's required by the same quarries that make the rock that we put on the road, and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, the quarry and stone processing facilities generate dust, and also called particulate matter, and with diameters less than equal to 10 micrometers, and the regulations call this dust PM10, and it says it can cause lung damage. And this summer was a real example of when someone would drive down a road and the dust would just linger and go across for the longest way. So it was really a problem. But we can see where the county has agreed to take on some debt. Matter of fact, they co-signed a loan to pave Trogdon Road also, and I've got that agreement in here somewhere. But we agreed for the selling of bonds of up to $2 billion for Wholesome. They're supposed to pay those back, and then on the
Okay, I got one more road question, and then
I
we're
got an
gonna.
answer for that.
Okay,
We don't have a loan for Trogdon Road. Summit does. We get 15 cents a ton for every ton that they ship out of that quarry. They borrowed $200,000 to pave our road. The bank asked us if we would guarantee the loan. Well, it's our road. Yes, we will. But 3 years, that paving of that road will be paid for. All the money we get after that will be in escrow to keep improvements on that road, and hopefully someday widen it to take the danger of those big trucks against the 80 to 90% of residents that wanted it widened.
Okay, my next question was actually about Trogdon Road and that situation.
Okay?
My question for you, Mr. Nelson, is is there anything you would have done differently with that situation?
The only thing I'd like to see us do different was make a 24-foot wide road out of it for the safety of the residents.
So ignore that.
I would like to see rumble strips, 24-foot wide with rumble strips down it, because that is, with 50 trucks full of sand a day coming off that road, 50 empty trucks going in, which the residents that's on that road, it would be a lot safer for them with a wider road and with rumble strips down the middle to alert the trucks when they start going around the.
Okay.
I'd like to also make the curve at least 25 feet wide, not for my benefit, for the benefit of the citizens that lives on that road.
Okay. Mr. Williams, if you had been county commissioner, how would you have handled the Trogdon Road situation?
I would have had a public meeting on any project. I think we should do it on all projects, and I really believe that widening the road increases the speed of those driving it. I drive a big rig sometimes and with a wide load, and there's some pretty narrow roads in Perry County and a few narrow roads. Hennick Road's pretty narrow. I've met a school bus already, but you just take your time. I'm going anywhere from between 20 to 25 miles an hour all the way back Hennick Road, and we pass safely. If it's a wide road, people are just going to go faster. That's just the way it is. And the nature of people is to do that. It's real tough to go slow on a nice wide road, which increases the danger to the people living there if faster they go. So I would have met with everybody and talked this all over and
We
worked
did.
everything out.
We met in Farmington at their courthouse to make it easier for the residents to attend.
Well, on site would be better. Like I went and looked at the bridge. I'd have a meeting at the site so we could look things over.
All right, thank you.
I got
very much,
another
gentlemen.
point to make too.
You
We did not
want
go $2 billion in debt for Wholesome. That's Wholesome's debt, not the county.
Yes. But the county approved the bonds according to the state
all part of the
auditor
Chapter
in
100 program. We had to do it.
2012. Yes.
I mean,
Okay,
we
let's
did
move
that
on
for
to a new
economic
topic.
development. yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm just taking over here, because Toby, I hope you're okay with that. So, if not, it's too late now. Mr. Nelson, you said in your opening statement that economic development was your #1 priority, and I'm sure it's a priority for Mr.
No,
Williams
number one
as well.
priority was to keep the budget sound.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And economic development and keep the law enforcement, pave the roads. That's all top
Okay,
priorities.
thank you. Thank you for that clarification. But my question is about economic development, and we have some good things going on in the county, you know, whether it's the hotel or the Port Authority and so on. But what would you propose, given the absence of a economic development professional in the county, how would you propose that that the county could help grow the local economy? And let's start with Mr. Williams this time.
I see so many times county government getting in the way rather than helping. You can look at Bloomsdale. That's a real good example up there with the Love's Truck Stop. They came in all on their own and they put in a real nice truck stop. There's a restaurant being built right now going next to it. Even here in St. Genevieve, we've got Oak's Furniture Store. He's got $1 million inventory there, and he did it all on his own without the county getting in the way and bothering him. I'm certain that if we could have assisted him with something, he would appreciate the assistance. But we've got the TIF district out at Ozor, and it's sad to see we lost our restaurant out there already, so hopefully someone will reopen that restaurant. But it just seems like that if we've got good infrastructure, good highways and roads in the area, a good school makes a difference, and we do have a good school. People want to move into this area, and jobs that are created will give them income so they can live here, and the whole thing will go great, and it will increase the amount of tax revenue we gather. And I did want to mention a while ago, though, one issue on the additional money I would come up with,
Okay.
or that I want to know about, basically.
Your closing statement.
Okay.
Yeah, you both have that. Mr. Nelson, the economic development question.
Well, I belong to 5 different economic development groups. With the one of them is a 4-county group we put together about 6 or 7 years ago, trying to get a big, like 800,000 person employment in here, the car factory, railroad car factory, something to bring in a lot of employment. It's been stagnant. We never got off the road, it's never got started. People are not, big businesses are not sure about the economy. They're not investing yet. Through Shanti Buckeye Economic Development in Perryville, we got all kinds of feelers out. Sandra Cabot is the new county city economic development director, so to speak, part-time with her job as the tourism director. The mayor just appointed a new board for economic development, which I'm on, and we're getting organized, trying to contact as many businesses as we can. We get money from Wholesome every year for economic development. We try to keep keeping the business intact is here is as important as bringing in a new business.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Toby, I'll let you talk now.
You're going to let Toby talk now?
I'm going to let Toby speak.
St. Francis County is seeking a sales tax for 911 to help fund the Joint Communications Center, which there are some concerns about the funding for that facility. What do you see as the future for 911 services for St. Genevieve County, Mr. Nelson?
St. Francis County is their landline phones dropped from 42,000 to 17,000 just in the last 4 years, and with the cell phones being so popular. They need a half-cent sales tax, but they do have alternative plans if it don't pass. So 911 is not going to go under out there. Our landline tax is holding pretty steady. We dropped about $40,000 in about the last 5 years, but it's not in danger. The city of St. Genevieve and the ambulance district and the county splits our fees with the 911 in St. Francis County. They have assured us many a times that the commissioners of St. Francis County that it will not close the doors, and we'll have 911 service as long as we have needed. Now, our local 911 building, our equipment is so old now. We was about $1 million estimate getting everything up to where it can handle today's phase 2 cell phone. Most calls come in cell phones. If you don't have phase 2, they can't locate where you're at, and it's an expensive operation to run.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
So there's a website, save911.org, and they're trying to promote a 3/8 sales tax. But they do say on their little movie that they put up there that if they do close down, you'll have to go back to local dispatching like it was. But our commissioners have chose to use St. Francis County for our dispatching, and we send $459,000 a year is what the new price is going to be over to them. We lost 13 jobs. And if each one of those wage earners would have made 13 jobs, we would have kept $390,000 of wage earners here. And we did all that just to save $100,000. So I don't know if it really saved us. We did lose 13 jobs in our community, and that's not a good economic development plan.
Oh, but it goes a lot further than just the figures of what everything was closed down.
All right. Let's move on to another topic. Mr. Williams, you serve on the Fair Board more recently. And the Fair Board in recent years had some successes and it's had some challenges. It is a separate nonprofit organization that manages county-owned property. What should the relationship be with the Fair Board and the county fair? And do we need to make any changes in that relationship?
Oh, I was fortunate enough a couple days ago, I talked to this fellow, and he seen that I was on the Fair Board, and he had been on there previously, and he never stopped talking for 30 minutes telling about his experience on the Fair Board and how much work it is and how to keep the property, how much work it was to keep it mowed and things of that sort. And it's just a lot of work, and he had a suggestion for me. He said we need to hire someone to take care of the fairgrounds for us. He said, you normal volunteers just cannot do this. So he suggested we hire someone, and then that guy have the power to hire someone to assist him, some young one from school, and I even suggested that someone needing to serve community service time could go up there and serve their time. But it is a lot of work up there. I am kind of bothered every time I think about our youth services building up there, because we need handicap restrooms. We're violating federal law by not having handicap restrooms, and I never knew it was an issue until this one church wanted to use our building, and the first thing the guy asked, do you have handicap restrooms? And no, we don't. And that's a serious situation, and we need to get that fixed. So I really appreciate everybody that contributes time to the fair.
Okay, great. Mr. Nelson?
A point about 911 first. If we would not have
Your
moved
time.
to St. Francis County, the city and the Amos District would have pulled away from us, and that would have left us broke, but couldn't do anything on our own. The fair board, we've had some good fairs, but Kenny's right about the bathrooms on the youth building. We've presented 2 different ideas to them. They got so busy with getting their fair ready this shortly before the fair, there wasn't time to do it. The county commissioners, all 3 of us thought it might be, that's why I asked you, Tish, who owned the building, who actually owned it. If we can just hire somebody to go in and put handicap bathrooms in, instead of relying on the fair board to do it. It needs to be done. It needs to be done before the next fair. It will be done before the next fair.
Thank you, gentlemen. Toby?
How would you rate the commissioner's performance in terms of meeting the needs of people and working with municipalities in the county? Mr. Nelson.
Well, when we passed our road tax, we signed an intergovernmental agreement with the city of St. Genevieve, Bloomsdale, and St. Mary. We've offered our assistance with manpower and equipment. We've offered them to Bloomsdale. If they need something, they pretty well take care of themselves. We've offered in St. Genevieve. We've helped St. Genevieve, the city of St. Genevieve, on several projects. We have a bucket truck where when you raise people up to trim tree branches and fix things up higher on the building so they don't have to stand in a backhoe bucket. St. Genevieve's taking advantage of that. We've offered St. Mary. All we can do is offer. We're not going to barge in any of the towns and start doing things. We can offer our assistance. It's up to their local governments to decide what they want to do and to call us and say, all right, will you come and assist us on this? So we're ready. I mean, we'll do what we can and stay within the statutes of what we can do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Williams?
Oh, could you repeat the question?
Sure. How would you rate the commissioner's performance on meeting the needs of the people of the county and working with municipalities?
I hear a lot of complaints out there, especially from the county road workers, want to be paid more than once a month. And I speak with other ones in the county, and they are surprised that they only get paid once a month. And I know it's not the commission's job to pay them, it's the clerks. But there's many issues that the commission complains about, like when the site out at Ozora, where the state had dumped some things, that wasn't their job to clean that up, but they complained to the state to do that. So they could have complained to the clerk a long time ago. They've been for years want to be paid more than once a month. And I really think there's this big separation between government and the people, and we need to know more what's going on. If I was presiding commissioner, we would have a website for people to go to and let them know information about the county so that people can find information of what's going on in the county without having to take time to come to the county clerk's office and bother them ladies in there and say, what about this and that and that. And I really think we need a better relationship between the commissioners and the people.
You read the Herald?
All right, Mr. Nelson, you had your time.
About the
And
twice a month.
Mr. Nelson, please. All right, gentlemen. There's been some talk in the city of St. Mary recently among some residents about the possibilities of disincorporating. There was a petition, I think, some signatures that were being collected. What is your feeling about the city of St. Mary potentially dissolving and what that might mean for the county? All right, yes, Mr. Williams.
Several years ago, many years ago now that I think about it, I went to school down at St. Mary in the old school building down there. It was pretty new back then, and I have a lot of relationship with St. Mary, going to school there for 6 years, and then from there I come on up to St. Genevieve, and we did a lot of business in St. Mary the years past, where it had a lot of different businesses down there at that time, for the river kind of forced a lot of them out. But on St. Mary, I think if we're going to have a government by the people and for the people, I think they're going to have to decide what they want down there. And I don't live in the town. I got a St. Mary address, but I live way out in the rural area of the county, out in the Ozore area. So I don't want to tell them what they need. They tell me what they need, and both sides of the issue down there can work their differences out. And I kind of wish they would have a town picnic and all of them get along and just have a good old town down there.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Mr. Nelson?
Well, I think it would be bad for this town. I think if they're going to do it, they need to know all the facts. They need to have a town hall meeting with all the interested people there and listen to the facts and not the myth. You know, the county would not take over the sewer system. The county water department would not take over the county water or the city water. This county road and bridge would not take over the streets. The sheriff's department would not put somebody down there full-time policing the place. It'd be like any other subdivision, Goose Creek, Lake Forest, Rocky Ridge, you know, Lake Seven Falls. It would be, and this another subdivision. They would lose a lot of entities, which, well, the four main ones right there that they have now. I would, like Kenny, we should get along. And, you know, they need to compromise. Neither sides will compromise regardless who's in there.
All right, thank you.
One of the largest challenges of the job is working with the county budget. If you could talk about your experience with budgets of that size. Mr. Nelson.
Well, 9 years on the school board, I learned a lot about tax budgets that's funded by tax dollars. We total about $8 million in the county that we goes through the county courthouse. That's with grants and other things. Our people want raises, and we want to give them raises, but 1 quarter on the paycheck brings $66,000 out of general revenue. It's hard to come first of the year when we got to make a budget out. People, you know, they're struggling, but you got to be disciplined and look at that bottom line on the budget. Like I said, 25 cents equals $66,000 roughly in the county budget. I've been doing the budget on the county for 10 years now, or close to 10 years.
All right. Thank you.
You don't give us
Worth
much
that
time to
time.
answer some of these questions.
Gave you what we told you in the letter. Give you a minute, and actually gave you 2 on that first question because you were really into it, both of you. Okay, Mr. Williams, the budget question.
So obviously, I never handled a budget that large. The Center for Life, it takes a lot of money to keep them doors open. And with the excavating company and the things that we have to purchase and the things that work and things like that, there's definitely a lot of decisions to be made. And it would take a lot of time, but it doesn't seem like it would be something that wouldn't be doable for a person to be able to understand a budget and to get things to balance out, and to look at the needs of the different departments and the road department and things like that. I'd have an expertise in because of that's the line of work I've been trained in. But I believe I can handle the job.
Good job on time that time. They're learning. So there was a half-cent bond issue passed many years ago to finance, initially it was to finance the construction of the community center. And those funds became used somewhat to offset the cost of operations, I believe. That tax will be sunsetting in a few years. What do you think needs to happen to make the community center a sustainable entity? Do we need to go for that tax again? Do we need to do something different? How are we going to keep the community center going?
Who?
Oh, sorry, whoever went last time. Mr. Nelson. Right? Mr. Williams, sorry.
I go first, okay.
Thank you.
Well, in this audit report in 2012, on December the 31st of 2012, they still owed $3,365,000. And whatever it means by $412,000 respectively. So there's a lot of money out. And then the loan payoff was in 2018, and then they borrowed some more money and moved it to 2021. And then there's an additional $925,000 and $241,000 spoken of there. So my wife and my son uses the community center, and my son Jonathan says that new weightlifting room is great. So I do want to see the community center be available, and I do want to see it affordable. But it's just something I'd have to look into and talk with different ones out there in the county, because I want to be a commissioner that gets input from people, and I want to find out what they're thinking.
Okay. Mr. Nelson?
The community center, as with Brad Arnold as a director, has made a lot of good steps the last 4 or 5 years. He's put in a ground source heat pump, which has cut their energy bill almost in half. It is going to sunset. The tax is going to sunset. The only way it's going to survive without getting that tax sunset extended is to get more members, and to get more members, we got to get more rooftops. We got to get more people in the community, closer to the community center. I was out in the northern part of the county today talking to a lady that would love to use it, but it's too far away. And so, you know, the city of Bloomdale has talked about possibly seeing as if our community center could branch out there. At this time, they couldn't afford it, but it's definitely going to need help. Their bonds are going to be paid off, but the operation is just an expensive operation.
Thank you. Toby?
Sure. My last question is this. Mr. Nelson has been appointed presiding commissioner about 3 years ago, won re-election one time a couple years ago without any opposition. How would you both see the direction of the county in that time? To start, Mr. Nelson. The direction of the county in the last 3 years.
Well, I'm a positive person. I think we're going in a good direction. We're getting a lot of roads paved. We're getting equipment that we haven't had before to help. The more asphalt we put down, the more we're going to have to keep it patched and keep it in good condition so it don't fall apart. The sheriff's department's one of the most respected in the state. Our courthouse, we've got excellent elected officials in the courthouse. Passing the road and bridge tax has really helped. We are paving more roads. I think we're going in the right direction. You know, if you wanted to borrow money to pave them all, who's going to loan us $10 million, $12 million? How much interest is it going to be? You know, there's a lot of questions about that. I'd like to see them all paved too, but I just don't think that's the way to go. The DNR, the one that published that report Kenny had, is also the same DNR that won't let us use Creek Rock like we used to.
I'm going to hear that in my sleep tonight. Mr. Williams?
So we asked what interest rate. Well, they loaned us it for 4% when we did the jail, so that'd be the interest rate there. But I can see growth in the community, bringing in more tax revenue, which is going to help with the paving project. It always fascinated me that the asphalt had to be hauled so far. It comes all the way from over by Bonne Terre. Whenever the Interstate 55 through our county was paved, they set up an asphalt plant in the southern end of the county, and the reduced cost of trucking had to be tremendous to haul that many loads and haul it close. So I really think that our county is on the grow now, and what has keeps us solid here is our natural resources. The limestone we have is some of the highest in calcium around, and we have a lot of natural resources, and we have a good workforce, we have a good school, and I think we're going to continue to grow. And the more businesses that go in, like Oaks Furniture, that's going to really help bring in more tax revenue, and if we bring in enough businesses, we'll have plenty of paving money.
Right to the second. Good job. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our closing statements. I will give you 2 minutes, but you will stick to 2 minutes, correct? All right? How about that? And Mr. Williams, I'm sorry, let's start with you and your closing statement.
So many of the issues that I spoke about already, I think about them often. I speak with many of you out in the community, and I understand that how it bothers you and the road dust and how it lingers, and how when you buy nice vehicles, the dust just deteriorates them faster than you want. And I just want to resolve a lot of these county issues, and the number one thing I want to do is communicate. I want to come out and see you guys and talk with you and see what issues that you want done. I sure want to see handicapped bathrooms up at the fairgrounds. That really bothers me. We're violating the federal law, and I really am somewhat still bothered by 911 leaving the area and losing 13 jobs there, and I've talked with different ones, and I hear complaints about that all the time, and that really concerns me also. And it's going to be interesting to see the recycling center. The shelter workshop should do a great job there. That would be great. But I just kind of want to hear from everybody and what's going on. I want the next bridge built tall enough, is what I want to see too, and kind of put it in line so us guys driving long rigs can get across it. So I hope that everyone will go vote on November the 4th for me, not him. So I sure appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and
Okay,
thank you very much.
thank you very much. Mr. Nelson, your closing statement, please.
Okay, well, I feel my 35 years in the construction industry has qualified me to make changes in the road and bridge, help update our equipment, do procedures now, which we never done before. That we bought a water truck, we wet the limestone before we pave it now. We wet it, roll it, get 98% compaction at least. That makes the roads last a lot longer. I got Randy and Joe Gettinger as fellow commissioners. We don't always agree, but we compromise. We get things done that way. I feel my 9 years experience on the school board has made me aware of how to make big budgets work, taxpayers' budgets work. In the last almost 10 years I've been in office, you just look around the courthouse, the difference the courthouse is now with handicap parking, handicap door openers. The outside, we put new shrubbery in, make it nicer. We placed 2 different sidewalks, the one between the church and the courthouse, and the one between the courthouse and the Herald office. We continue to make improvements as our budget will let us. I think we've come a long ways in 10 years, and I would like to lead the county for the next 4 years. I agree with Kenny. Just get out and vote. You know, there's been a lot of people went to war to protect our rights to vote. So it just disturbs me when people complains but they didn't vote. So get out and vote.
All
All
right, we
right.
have our candidates
Thank you,
for
gentlemen.
state representative for District 115, which covers the northern end of St. Genevieve County, up in the Kinsey precinct, as well as portions of Jefferson and St. Francis counties. And with us is Republican Elaine Freeman Gannon, who is the incumbent, and the Democrat challenger, Dan Darien. And we are going in order of the ballot, which will be Mr. Darien as the Democrat candidate with a 2-minute opening statement.
Well, my name is Dan Darien. I grew up in what is the 115th district after redistricting in 2012. I've lived there pretty much all my life. Grew up there. My parents moved there when I was about 5 years old. So, and then I'm currently raising my family there. So it's always been my home. Married to my wife Tracy Darien for 19 years. She is a teacher in Jefferson County. We have 3 children. I have an 18-year-old daughter in her first year of college. I have a 13-year-old son who's in 8th grade, junior high, and then I have a 6-year-old son who is in 1st grade. So I have them spread out a little bit and kind of have a good understanding of what it's like to try and raise a family in this particular economy. For the past 18 years, I've worked in public service as a deputy juvenile officer with Jefferson County Juvenile Office. I specialize in working or did with delinquent youth, Used to run a caseload with them. Now I'm the program administrator of our drug treatment program for adolescents. So, like I said, I've been there for the past 18 years. What my focus is, and what the reason I decided to run for office is just seeing what I saw as a focus, I guess, more in favoring, I guess, corporations and business owners. I didn't see a lot of people with the perspective of just a regular working person as a legislator. A lot of attorneys, a lot of business owners, a lot of fairly wealthy people. It is an expensive thing to do to run a campaign. And I understand why it's that way, but I think it's really needed to have someone who understands, and like I said, that maybe is raising a family, that goes to work every day, and knows what it's like to be here and now, and what it's like in the economy presently.
Thank you. Ms. Gannon?
Good evening, and I would first like to thank the St. Genevieve Herald and the University of Missouri Extension and the St. Genevieve Community Access Television for hosting this event tonight and giving people running for office a chance to express their views. I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak this evening and tell you why I'm seeking my second term as state representative for District 115. My district is extremely very rural. It includes the southern part of Jefferson County, the northern part of St. Francis County, and a small portion of St. Genevieve. I use the name Freeman, Elaine Freeman Gannon, my maiden name, because I grew up in St. Francis County. I was born and raised in Bismarck, the youngest of 11 children, and left there in 1971 when I graduated from high school. So by using my middle name, that kind of people can identify with that from the lead belt. I'm a retired school teacher. I taught 32 years at DeSoto in the junior high. I retired in 2007. I am married to Dennis Gannon, and we have 2 grown children, Andrew, who lives in Dallas, Texas, and Jason, who lives and works in Columbia, Missouri. My reason to run for a second term is based on a desire to continue my service to the citizens of District 115. I've always been a supporter of education, and I will continue to if elected for a second term. I stand firmly on the belief of the sanctity of life. I have acquired a great deal of experience with the legislative process and working on numerous committees. During my first term, I was voted freshman class president. I am the treasurer for the Women's Legislative Caucus, and was that 2 minutes?
That was 2 minutes.
Okay.
You can come back to it at the end. We'll
Okay,
have some
sounds good.
Some closing statements there.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we're not too bad about being the timer police, but we want to be fair
You know
to both
what?
candidates.
Yes,
So
definitely.
that's the whole point of that. Toby, do you have an opening question for
Sure.
our state candidates?
The November ballot includes a somewhat controversial bill regarding education reform, and oftentimes we hear different people talk about education reform and Common Core and things like that. What steps do you believe need to be taken to improve public education in Missouri? And we'll start with Mr. Darian.
Well, there's a lot of ways we can improve education. One is fully funding the foundation formula. I think that was approved in 2005, I believe it was. Right now, I think we're somewhere around, 500 million or so below what it should be, and it's something that I think the state needs to make a priority. We need to make sure that the schools get the resources that they need. We've heard a lot about struggling school districts, and I think you mentioned Common Core. I think it's important that we allow districts to maintain that local control of their curriculum. I think that is extremely important, because who knows better what kids need in that particular area than the school board and the school district and the administrators there within the district. So I think that's a big step in improving education. The other thing, I don't like the idea. My wife's a teacher, so she's kind of, we've talked about it often as far as the focus on standardized testing and how it more gauges what the kids don't know than helping them get to the point of teaching what the kids should know. So there's just this focus. Everything they have to make sure that the kids score high enough, because that affects funding. That has become such a big issue to teachers that they can't go outside the box and really go into more innovative ways of teaching, because they have to focus on a test. And I think that is a step, getting rid of that, to improve education, or less of a focus.
Ms. Gannon?
Well, I'll start by saying I agree with everything my opponent just said. He hit it on the nail, and his wife's an educator, so he's familiar with the issues that educators face. So I'll go a different route, and I will say that probably the number one priority of school boards across the state is improving student achievement. And during my first term, I voted consistently to support education, and again, if elected, I will continue to do that. If you read the newspapers, Governor Nixon gave an incentive to provide additional funds for tutoring for low-income families and students. And I would like additional funds. You know, there's not just low-income students in North St. Louis. They're all across the state of Missouri, and he's providing funds for tutoring for the low-income students in North St. Louis. We have low-income students across the state of Missouri. So I would like to see those funds distributed everywhere, not just North St. Louis.
Okay, great. Thank you both very much. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about healthcare, which has been a very divisive issue between your two parties. About half of the states have signed on to Medicaid expansion, which is funded by the federal government, I believe, for the first 3 years. Do you support Medicaid expansion for the state of Missouri, and why or why not? Let's start with Ms. Gannon this time, please.
I really have a short answer for that.
Okay.
Who's going to pay for it after the 3 years?
Okay.
That's
All right.
what more can I say?
That's all my work. I'm okay with you. That's your answer. That's your answer.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Darian?
I guess we do differ there a little bit. You know, regardless of how you feel about the Affordable Care Act, I think Medicaid expansion is a smart thing to do. You know, even like the Chamber of Commerce, the Hospital Association, a lot of those agree that, you know, it'll bring jobs, it'll bring increase in wages, and not only that, you know, this is federal tax money that we've already spent, that now the federal government, because we won't expand, is sending it to other states. So the focus, I mean, this money could go to helping the working poor within our community. It seems to be there's opposites. You know, I mean, we have, if you make nothing, you have health care. If you make a lot, you can afford health care. But it's the people that are working maybe 3 part-time jobs trying to raise their family that don't have health care. And this is what, expanding Medicaid in this area is what would help them and help the working poor.
Can I have a few more seconds of my time?
Okay, you didn't take it all. So
Okay, just shortly. You know, I've had a lot of people come into my office, and I've listened to their plight, and them pretty much begging me to support the Medicaid expansion. And, you know, I just told them, I said, I can't do that right now, but I understand where you are coming from. I understand that you are hurting and that something needs to be done. I agree something needs to be done, but
do you have a suggestion?
no, I don't. But I have said the Republicans need to come up with what they think's going to work.
Okay.
Whoever's in charge of doing that.
Mr. Darian, is there anything further you want to say about Medicaid expansion?
No.
Yeah. Okay, great. Toby?
What do you see as things the state government can do to help create business development, economic development, and particularly in this area of the state? Mr. Darian.
You know, education that we talked about before is, I think, a big, you know, something that will encourage businesses to move here. I think if we have one of the best education systems in the nation and really focus our priority on that, I think it will attract businesses here, tech businesses, which something I know St. Louis area is interested in. I think a well-educated workforce is going to be one of the best motivators to get people to move to our state, or companies to move to our state. Another thing that, and I know there's often disagreement on this, but for me as a working person, during the recession, we saw small businesses close, mostly small businesses that I saw, and it wasn't because I don't think that they were overtaxed or overregulated. I think it's because regular people didn't have any discretionary income to go out to eat anymore, to go to those small businesses. So I think that something like increasing the minimum wage is going to go immediately back into the local community, that increase in money.
I think infrastructure's a big part of attracting businesses to your community. Also, education. I feel like a good school district, schools reflect your community, and your community reflects your schools. And I think when businesses are wanting to come into a new area, that, the infrastructure and the schools are two of the things that they look at. We just need to bring in companies or factories that can employ large numbers of people and get our people back to work. It's a tough situation right now.
Okay. Thank you both. We've seen some musical chairs in this area in terms of our legislative seats due to term limits. So what is your position on term limits in the state legislature, Ms. Gannon?
Well, I would have to say that term limits probably has not been a good thing. I tell you, I've been there 2 years, and there's still so much I do not know. And people that are on their last term will say it takes that last term and then it finally clicks. And I think there's a certain amount of camaraderie that's formed when there's not term limits.
Do you think they should be repealed?
I think, well, let me say this real quick.
Okay.
It was talked around last year of maybe having a bill where you could do 16 years. You could do 2 years in the House and 14 in the Senate. You could do 8 and 8. You could do 6 in the Senate and the rest in the House. You could do it however you wanted. Now, that did not take off. Who knows? Maybe it might. But I don't think term limits has been a good thing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Darian, your position on term limits in the legislature?
I don't think term limits are necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good to bring a fresh perspective in sometimes. I think more of the issue as far as getting things done has to do with the whole culture of the us versus them, and one party wanting to beat the other instead of focusing on voters and the people that they're there to represent. So, term limits, from what I understand, was a voter-approved legislation. So to overturn that, I think it needs to be presented back to voters if we feel that's right. I think we have a history of our legislature overturning voter-approved legislation. I think they have no business doing that. If the majority of people think something needs to be a certain way, if somebody wants to broach that subject and bring it up again for a vote, then that's great. But to take it upon themselves, the legislators, to change that, I just think is the wrong thing to do. It's basically telling voters, well, thanks for your opinion, but we want to do it this way. So I think that's something that needs to change.
Okay. Toby?
On a related topic, similar topic, do you believe there needs to be any change with campaign or finance reform? Mr. Darian.
Mr. Darian, yes.
I do. That's another issue. 1994, voters said there should be a limit to campaign finances, and it's another example of the legislators overturning that. And now currently we have no limits on campaign finance. So it's something that we have people being able to donate millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars into campaigns, and campaigns are expensive. You have to pay for mail. Some people are paying for television, things like that, to where you see these state races for someone that, you get paid $35,000, $36,000 a year, and they're spending $500,000 on a campaign. It's just ridiculous to me that wealthy people can get in and try to influence a vote by picking who they want to win. And I think we need to level the playing field, restore limits back again to what voters approved, and go from there.
I agree with a lot of what my opponent just said, leveling the playing field. I don't know how that's going to happen with the number of Republicans as opposed to the number of Democrats in the House. I know I have tried my best to keep my, finances low as far as a legislator buying me dinner or whatever. And I'm probably really at the bottom. And I'm going to try to even do better than that this next session if I go back to Jeff City and, not take anything.
Okay, great. Thank you both very much. In preparing for tonight, I was doing a little research on what some of the issues facing the states were. And one thing I found really interesting is that some states are moving away from income taxes with the theory that it would make their state more economically competitive. So does the Missouri, I know this is kind of a specific, but do you think the Missouri tax code needs to be revised?
Good question. Seems like I heard something about that towards the end of session when everything was so hectic. It could be. It could be. I don't know. We have the lowest taxes, so I don't know.
So that's a maybe.
Yeah, it's a maybe.
I'm okay
it's a
with
maybe.
that. I'm okay
yes.
with that. Okay. Mr. Darien, do you have any thoughts about the income tax?
Well, as
tax reform?
As Elaine said, we're a low tax state,
Yeah.
so I don't think that's a big issue. If I'm understanding right, is that the states that are wanting to go to just sales tax
We're already,
over
yeah.
income?
Yeah.
I mean, instead of income tax, I don't know, because I know there's a push to do away with income tax by some places and just do sales tax increases.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that, because I think that's put on the backs of lower income and middle class more than anyone else. So I don't like that idea.
Okay, thank you. Toby?
Speaking of taxes, the voters rejected a sales tax for the Missouri Department of Transportation projects earlier this year. How do you believe there should be funding to improve the roads and infrastructure in light of that voters' rejection? Mr. Darien?
As Elaine mentioned, infrastructure is important. I do think it should be a focus. It should be something that we budget for. But I think the issue why voters rejected it is we really had, again, it was put on the backs of just regular taxpayers and voted instead of having the businesses who also use the roads and probably put more wear and tear on them, have them pay their fair share as well. So I think it needs to be a balanced approach, if anything. I also think we need to look at prioritizing the budget to make sure the money is there. We can't do things that cut revenue and then expect to be able to pay for this. We did see tax cuts recently this year, and then we turned around and asked people to accept or approve a sales tax increase. It doesn't make sense to me. Either we have the money to do tax cuts and take care of everything else, or we don't. Why ask people to increase their sales tax just to do roads and bridges? And again, businesses, corporations, those who use the roads need to pay their fair share as well.
Well, the Missouri Department of Transportation is not being adequately funded, okay, to keep our roads and bridges in top condition. Now, during the election last year, Amendment 7, I believe, was the transportation bill. I supported it. However, I pretty much knew that it would not pass. But I would support an increase in the gasoline tax if there was a mutual support between the Republicans and the Democrats in both houses. And the monies, the increased monies, should be dedicated strictly to roads and bridges. So,
Okay. Thank you. You both talked about, it sounds like education is a high priority for both of you. But if elected, what would be your other top priorities, in addition to education? What legislation would you be seeking to introduce early in your term?
I think it's my turn.
I believe it is.
I want to go back to what I said about preschool and early childhood education. Right now, not every school district has that across the state. And that's probably one of the top things that I would be looking at. I think that really goes a long way in preparing our children for school. I'm a big supporter of right to life. Now, I don't particularly have any thoughts as far as legislation-wise, especially since we passed the 72-hour waiting period for an abortion. So really, if I'm looking at a piece of legislation, it would be in education.
Great, thank you. Mr. Darian?
For me, I guess second to education would be ethics reform. Just in this legislative session alone, almost $700,000 was spent by lobbyists to give legislators gifts, meals, Cardinals tickets, sporting events, and to me, it's unethical. Elected officials should hold themselves to a higher standard. They should not accept those gifts. It looks bad, for one thing. It looks like they're being paid off for voting a certain way or trying to pay them off to vote a certain way. And most will tell you, I've never based a vote on a meal, but still, it shouldn't happen. The only people who should have any influence are the voters. They need to focus. I see Jefferson City and just my little bit of experience of being up there and around as almost this vacuum, and I think they get so much information just from lobbyists and people who are monopolizing their time with dinner and everything that they don't get a focus and don't get to speak with voters and find out what's important to them.
All right, thank you.
My last question is this. Many states currently are seeing appeals with regard to constitutional amendments regarding marriage, and the House Speaker here has asked the Attorney General to defend the state's constitution and the definition of marriage as a union between a man and a woman. I'm wondering what you believe the state's position should be on same-sex marriage. And Mr. Darian, we'll start with you.
Again, I'm going to fall back to voter-approved legislation. It was something that the voters defined marriage as between a man and a woman. That was, I think, an overwhelming majority of Missouri voters from what I remember. So I don't have a problem with it putting it back up for vote. If Missourians want to vote again, they made the decision, I think, to define it the way they did. Then I think someone needs to put it out there. Let Missourians decide if that's something that the state or the majority of people in the state want to happen.
I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. So.
All right.
And I would agree with that. For religious reasons,
Yeah.
that's what I believe as well.
We go to closing statements then?
Yeah, I think so. I was toying with one, but no, we'll let them off the hook. Let's go on to closing statements then. Starting with Ms. Gannon.
Okay.
Your 2-minute closing statement, please.
Okay, well, it has been an honor to represent the citizens of District 115. I take my votes very seriously. The people of my district sent me to Jeff City, and they expect me to vote what's in their best interest. Over the past 2 years, I have learned the ins and outs of the legislative process and served diligently on numerous committees. With my knowledge and experience, I am eager to return to Jefferson City and continue the job of serving and helping the people of my district as well as our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Darian?
For me, I'll keep it brief. I think voters have a choice. I don't agree with the current direction of not, the focus I think needs to be on voters. Voters need to always come first. I think we need to get lobbyists out of the equation to where they're not monopolizing that time. And I think that legislation needs to, we need to work in the best interest of the majority of Missourians and not just a select few or a privileged few that someone has decided, needs special treatment. It has to be a focus on the majority of people rather than, like I said, someone who's buying you dinner or contributing to your campaign.
Our final discussion of the evening is candidates for the 8th District of the state of Missouri in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is a 5-person race. We have 2 of the candidates here with us this evening. We have the Democrat Barbara Stocker, and we have Independent Terry Hampton. The race also includes Republican incumbent Jason Smith, Libertarian Rick Vandeven, and Constitution Party candidate is Doug Enyart. So tonight we'll open with the opening statements from the 2 candidates that are with us, and we'll start with Ms. Stocker.
I'd like to thank the St. Genevieve Herald, the University of Missouri Extension, and the St. Gen Community Access TV for inviting me here. And I'd like to thank the audience for showing up and overriding the ball game. I'm Barbara Stocker. I'm the Democrat running for Congress in Missouri's 8th District. I'm a retired scientist who worked in medical research at Washington University, moved over to the corporate world at Monsanto and Ralston Purina. I've worked in retail sales. I was a dental assistant for a while. I've been a tax preparer. I've even been unemployed, so I know how that feels to a lot of people. I was born to a working family. I had the benefit of an excellent public education and attended West Virginia University when it was affordable. My parents paid part and I worked for part of it, graduated unencumbered, no debts, jobs were available, and I was ready to face the world. And so many people don't have that opportunity today. And one thing I want to do is bring those kinds of opportunities back. This district has seen job loss, business closings, towns dying, and people slipping into poverty. I place the responsibility for this wreckage directly on Congress, who could have done a lot to help and didn't. This has been the most unproductive Congress in history. So I saw a need and a challenge, and I took the plunge to try to make a positive difference. Remember Nancy Reagan's drug policy? Just say no? Well, it didn't work. So naturally, the Republicans turned that into their congressional policy. Just say no. Congress has said no to a jobs bill, unemployment benefits extension, equal pay for women, lowering interest on student loans, raising the minimum wage, and food for children.
You can come back to that in your closing statement. You're just getting rolling, aren't you?
I'm just getting rolling.
Okay, Ms. Hampton, your opening statement, please.
Thank you for inviting me tonight. In this midterm election, there are independents running for office across the country, and many struggle to be able to fully be a part of the process, and which is strange to me to think that a citizen representative is the one who seems to have trouble fitting in, because the two-party system is not constitutional. It's not a constitutional requirement, I should say, and in fact, it's really become a dismal failure over the years. As citizens, we are not happy, and our political views are beginning to reflect that. Over 40% of Americans now identify as independent, and that makes us the largest political group in the country. Yet in the House, there's not a single independent member. Congress doesn't look like us or act like us because it is not like us. And that goes double for women. Only 18% of Congress is female. Too many of us have bought into the idea of thinking that voting for either an R or a D is the only option. It's not the only option, and I contend it's not the best option, because in politics, even those who have good intentions, if they're a candidate in the two-party system, they really give up their freedom to be able to represent their constituents. And that's why, to represent us, I am an independent. I'm unaffiliated with a party, I'm taking no special interest money, and I have no obligations outside the district. district. And that's the way it should be, ordinary people working to represent their districts. And we can work together to move our country forward. Now we are not being represented. Big money controls our country, steers the conversation, and creates divisions among us, and distracts us with issues that Congress does not intend to fix. So let's call on our representatives to tell us where their money comes from. In one of the poorest districts in the country, our current representative raised nearly $1.5 million for his campaign. Why does that money come from outside the district? The real problem in this country is we've been betrayed by professional politicians, their parties, and their corporate sponsors. The Washington establishment doesn't want to do anything about it, so we must.
Sorry. I figured you both could keep going. But let's kind of continue the theme a little bit here. And so my first question is, what are your top, let's say, we don't have a lot of time here, so say your top 3 priorities if elected. And we'll start with Ms. Stalker and Ms. Hampton, and then we'll rotate those answers after that.
Okay, well, we need to invest in our economy to bring in jobs. We need to invest in infrastructure, roads, bridges, ports, national parks, federal facilities. We need to invest in education and develop citizens and schools, children ready to face the challenges of the 21st century. I went to graduate school with a National Science Foundation grant, and I know I've repaid that several times over. And we should invest in research. Research has been cut to the bone. If research hadn't been cut, we might have an Ebola vaccine today when we need it. And research provides the ideas and the innovation to start new businesses, and we do need to start new businesses in southeast Missouri. So this would all create greater revenue, and it would pretty much solve our budget problems because it would bring in more income. We do not have to cut it to the bone. We need to invest. Invest.
All right, very good, thank you. Ms. Hampton, what are your top priorities?
Campaign finance reform, campaign finance reform, campaign finance reform. There really are multiple issues that need to be addressed, but 3 things stand out. There's too much money flowing into campaigns and pockets. There are too many people in Congress or running for Congress who are willing to take the money that's offered, and there's just not a level playing field for those of us who truly want to represent our districts. And there are ballot access issues that really need to be addressed, but we are going to have to do something to address the Citizens United fiasco. That just simply must be undone. And there are other campaign finance reform issues that must be addressed. I think that only registered voters within a particular legislative district should be able to contribute to campaigns. That would really address the lobbying issues, because the whole lobbying industry is certainly out of control. We have to close the revolving door between Congress and going into prime plum jobs in the private sector that they've been voting on the whole time they've been in Congress.
Okay, thank you very much. Toby?
I'm actually going to follow up on campaign finance reform. Just curious how you guys, if you would like to see that done, and what steps you'd like to see with campaign finance reform. Also, whether you believe it can be done without infringing on freedom of speech and without creating further imbalance between a incumbent and a challenger in a race like this.
I'm going to give you a time limit.
That was a big question.
I'll give you a little longer to answer this one.
Ms. Hampton.
Well, the areas that I touched on, I think that we certainly can do those things without infringing on free speech. Money is not speech, and corporations are not people. So that is why we need to address Citizens United. I think at this point probably it is going to have to be a constitutional amendment. And of course, at our state level, we don't have limits, but at the federal level, we, in a way, also don't have limits because we have super PACs. And I think that we're definitely going to have to address that at some point in time. Super PACs are providing all kinds of dark money. There's not enough transparency in where the money is coming from. And there's some really great, there's a a piece of legislation that's been drafted called the Anti-Corruption Act, and it would be a really great place to start. There are some others that have been floated around too, but I really like that one, the anticorruptionact.org. Anybody can look it up, and I think it's a really great place to start because it addresses a lot of the issues with lobbying and super PACs and those kind of things.
Well, I agree very much with what Terry has said here. We do have to overturn Citizens United, and there are moves afoot to try to do that. I mean, whoever thought a corporation was a person, it's a created entity. Why should it have free speech? And it's and I think we need to no, it's not close some other tax loopholes too, but that's probably a different question. But yeah, we need campaign finance reform and absolutely full disclosure. You can make a super PAC and call it America for Americans, and it could be the most undermining thing that exists. And you don't know where the money comes from, and that it should be full transparency and full. I am in favor of limits, and I don't think if everybody's on the same playing field, it undermines freedom of speech.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about tax reform, if there needs to be any, and if so, what do we need to do? And Ms. Stocker, we'll start with you this time.
Okay, yes, we need tax reform both on the corporate and the individual level. On the corporate level, we have to find ways so that corporations cannot just jump from country to country to find have a little office building and call it their headquarters and jump from country to country to get lower tax rates and have a mailbox in the Bahamas. We cannot let them have benefits for sending jobs overseas. They should have penalties for that. And I think we also need to renegotiate our trade agreements to keep America working and American products in America. On the individual level, we need to at least close loopholes, and I would not be opposed to raising the rates on some of the highest income tax so that Warren Buffett's secretary does not pay a higher rate than Warren Buffett does. I think that is grossly unfair, and it happens with a lot of people. Particularly, I would like to see I would like to see the rate for unearned income is lower than the rate for earned income. I don't see where that benefits anybody. They don't invest it.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Hampton.
I think Barbara has a lot of really great ideas in this regard. It's always frustrating whenever I hear that we have the highest corporate income tax in the world, and that's why corporations don't want to do business here. But the fact of the matter is, most of them are paying an effective rate of about 12 to 15%, and some of them aren't paying anything at all. And those loopholes definitely need to be closed. That is simply not realistic, and to expect corporations to be doing business in the United States without helping to pay for the infrastructure that they are able to take advantage of. And I think that our tax code just for individuals needs to be simplified. Something akin to a flat tax rate, although it could probably be a progressive flat tax rate. If you're not earning a living wage, you shouldn't have your income taxed at the same flat rate necessarily. If you're not earning a living wage, I think we need to look at what the tax rate would be. But I think the tax code needs to be simplified overall. Loopholes need to be closed, and we can make the IRS's job a whole lot simpler.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think each of you mentioned a little bit about Southeast Missouri and the economy. A lot of poor counties, economically challenged counties. What steps do you believe can be taken to improve the economy here, and does it involve investment of federal funds along the line of stimulus? And we'll start with Ms. Hampton.
It's a tall order for sure. There's such a diversity in this district. Over in the western part of the district from where I'm from, in Howe County and some of those rural areas, there have been some really interesting things with co-ops co-ops, farming co-ops and artisan co-ops, and it has really provided a means of economic development for our rural poor. But then we have other parts of the district that are definitely in another category. I think we just need an all-hands-on-deck approach. I would really like to work with the economic development directors in the district, with the city administrators, with the county commissioners, because I think the people in the counties and in the cities have really good ideas. And if our opponent was here, he would say that removing regulations is the magic bullet. But I think we are overregulated in many areas, but I don't think that that is the only way to address the issue. But I think that there are multiple approaches, and they involve a lot of local solutions too.
And this was for Southeast Missouri. I don't think stimulus is quite the right word that we'd want to use, but development and assistance, like small business assistance, set up enterprise zones, for example, and assistance in ideas and help with locations. Just help people get going, and I know there is some of that, but and the research to provide the ideas. We could do some college education programs to get the right training. There are blue-collar jobs being developed, but they require some specific education. So private enterprise and colleges could work together to do things like that to help get the workers needed and more training. Yeah, there's a lot to do and that could be done, and it should be.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, that's it. So, Gallup, the well-known poll organization, does a poll of Americans each quarter. You may be familiar with this, asking what they think the most important problem is in the U.S. In the recent quarters, the issue that has been number one has been dissatisfaction with the government. Gridlock. And you both, I think, mentioned this. So the answer to gridlock is clearly not that the other side needs to cave. So what would you propose to bring about a more effective government and raise people's confidence in the operation of the government? Now, let's start here with Ms. Stocker.
Good question. I think we need, the government does get a bit heavy-handed at times. I think we need to work on more cooperation between bureaucracy and people so they don't come up with such heavy-handed approaches, and work with the people. Like, for example, in Carter County, they're closing down the part of the parks for renovations, but they just set down a 3 years, they're going to close it, and they could have maybe partly closed it and kept part of it open and worked with the people on doing that. Regulations can be worked through. I think we need them. They cause jobs and safety and air quality and all that thing. But work with companies to ease them in or help with that if they need it. Cooperation. I mean, one side cannot just say my way or the highway. People need to work together like they used to, and I think we can do that, but compromise, not caving.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Hampton.
Well, as an independent, I believe that the two-party system has really failed us, and until we start electing some unaffiliated candidates, I'm afraid that the system has no reason to change. The people in Congress now are perfectly happy with the way things are going because they continue to make an awful lot of money. And I won't say that that is true of every member of Congress. I know that there are a lot of people who have gone there who really and truly do want to serve, but they are caught up in the same two-party system. And as I said in my opening comments, once you're a part of that system, it is really hard to have the freedom to represent your constituents. It is such an overwhelming urge to not only just have your party be reelected, but to make sure the other party is not elected. And we've just set up a system where the voters, the constituents, the citizens, we the people simply are not being represented. And when you have that kind of animosity and you have that kind of system in place, until something happens to break down that barrier, to crash the party, if you will, I don't think it's going to be very difficult for the two-party system to address those issues. It doesn't want to fix itself.
Great, thank you.
Where do each of you stand on gun rights?
Starting with Ms. Hampton, please.
Well, I don't think anybody could represent this district and have any other feeling other than complete respect for Second Amendment rights. And at this point, you know, there's a real part of me that wishes I could just say, all right, let's start putting limits on guns and let that fix the problem. But we all know that that will not fix the problem. We have breakdowns in communities. We have breakdowns in families. We have such a lack of respect, just as a general rule in society. And so I can't do anything other than say, I'm a complete supporter of Second Amendment rights, and you know, everyone has the right to defend themselves and their families.
Thank you. Ms. Stoffer.
I support the Second Amendment. People have the right to defend themselves. People, sportsmen have the right, I think, to hunt and shooting contests and stuff. I think we have two different gun cultures in this country. The 8th district is nearly all sportsmen and self-defense, and we don't have too many street gangs and things like that in the Second Amendment, where there are laws against owning guns and crime. I mean, the criminal laws against guns should be enforced, and we may not have enough enforcement of gun laws where they are a problem. But I don't think I support the Second Amendment.
Okay.
I don't think we've got that much of a problem in the 8th district.
Thank you. Dramatically switching gears here, talking a little bit about foreign affairs, because that is part of being in Congress. We're in a tough spot in the Middle East. I don't think anybody wants to see ISIS or radicals in charge of anything, anywhere, at any time, but many Americans also don't want to see us commit to another war. So what do you think our role should be in the Middle East? I'm sorry, we'll start with Ms. Stalker this time.
Okay. Well, if I really had my druthers, I'd put every interested party in a room and make them sit there till they worked out a solution that satisfied everybody, which might be 100 years or so. But no, we cannot tolerate groups that go around beheading people and kidnapping, and so we do need to do something about ISIS. I like the coalition approach. Our airstrikes can be helpful, and we just have to do what we have to do, naughty as the problem may be. I do not support American boots on the ground in Syria and Iraq. I want to see working boots on the ground in Missouri.
Okay. All right. Ms. Hampton.
Well, my dad was a World War II vet, and he died 5 years ago. He was 91 years old, and he hated the war on terror. He used to say to me, Terry, how can you fight a war when you don't even know who the enemy is? And I think we continue to be the best recruitment tool that the extremists have. You know, we have either indirectly or directly now armed every group in the Middle East, and I just have to ask, what is our mission there? We just keep bombing one group of terrorists while at the same time we're arming the next group of terrorists that we're going to be bombing next month. And it is horrific what they're doing, but their brutality is not an evil that can be overcome with more war. And we simply cannot afford to continue to wage war there. Our meddling in the Middle East is not helping, and there's just no clear mission. There's no end game. There's no way to ever claim clear victory in this situation. And, you know, we can find the money to blow up infrastructure in other countries. I see these photographs of piles of rubble of what we've done. We have the money to do that, but we don't have the money to rebuild infrastructure in our own country. And I wish there's something we could do to fix that area of the world. There simply isn't.
All right, thank you. Toby?
We'll change gears again to something different.
There's a lot of issues facing the nation, so.
This is kind of the time of the year when businesses are reviewing their insurance plans and renewing that for the 2015. How are your feelings about the Affordable Care Act and the future of health care for the United States? Mrs. Hampton.
Well, for one thing, the Republican Party's just relentless efforts to overturn the Affordable Care Act have not been helpful to this country, I don't believe, because I want to know what their plan is, and I have heard no plan. But having said that, I have a lot of concerns with the Affordable Care Act. It has helped a lot of people. It has hurt a lot of people. I know young families that it has not helped at all. I think that we need to have a multi-layered approach to health care in this country, and I don't know that our jobs should be tied to health care. There are other countries in the world that have addressed this through, again, a multi-layer approach. Insurance, private insurance, some elements of universal health care. You know, we're one of the greatest countries in the world, and we cannot figure out a way to take care of people. I've had physicians in my community say if they had the freedom to, they could take care of most of the people who are sick in our own community. And I think that strong local communities who have the freedom to take care of people has got to be one of the biggest elements in reform. But I don't know that our insurance should be tied to our employment.
Thank you very much.
The Affordable Care Act is certainly better than what we had with the free-for-all, with charge what you want and don't insure somebody if you don't want to. I mean, that was awful, and it desperately needed change. And it has been a 70-year project to get some kind of health care in this country. And the Affordable Care Act was the best they could do. It was actually a Republican plan put in Massachusetts by Mitt Romney. And then the Republicans hate it because it got taken by the Democrats. But I would prefer a single-payer system, Medicare for all. I'm on Medicare. It works just fine. And it would be far less complex, and there would have to be a tax somewhere, but we've got taxes now that are paying for what we have. So if we could use the same money for it, and it should work. The reason we don't have it is because insurance companies would lose their business.
Thank you. Did you have a sentence to finish there?
No, I was kind of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Kind of related to this, an issue on the mind of many people, especially those of us at the tail end of the baby boom, is Social Security and the future of Social Security. How would you propose to stabilize or fix the Social Security system?
I think I support Social Security. I don't think we should change it. It has been the most popular and one of the best programs this country has ever passed. If we get the economy moving, more money will go into it. There is not an immediate problem in Social Security. If there is, it's 50 years out or so, and I just grow the economy. It'll fix itself.
Okay. Ms. Hampton?
Well, there are some pretty specific approaches out there to fix it, and one of it is to scrap the cap on I think, and Barbara has some other comments too. I think that it has been a very popular a program, and some call it an entitlement program, but it technically is not. Is one of the few things in this country that is based on an element of reality. I mean, people do pay into the system, and it's not an entitlement program. It is a wonderful social program that we just simply can't go back to the days before we had Social Security, in my opinion, even though there are other reforms, specific reforms that can make it stronger, and one of them is to remove the cap.
Did you want to speak?
Yeah, there have been proposals to privatize it, and we don't want to put our dollars into risky Wall Street investments and let them take their piece of the pie.
Okay.
So.
Anything further? Okay. Toby?
My last question is, what role should the federal government have in education? Should it be greater or reduced from what it currently is? Mrs. Hampton.
Me first. Well, of course, this is an ongoing issue, and it's a very divisive issue, I think, in my area and throughout the whole district. I think there are a lot of the departments at the federal level that have certainly gotten out of control, and I think that the Department of Education is one of them. A lot of those departments are just now so big that their main goal is just to feed themselves to keep on growing. And local solutions, in my opinion, are the best solutions in almost every area. And I have friends who are educators, and they say they would just love to be able to teach, just to be able to educate. And so I know that the issues with Common Core have been very divisive. Actually, I have a friend who is working on the committee now to review those, to review that plan. And the curriculum still remains in the hands of local school districts, and they need to just be strong. They need to work on a lot of different elements in education, including we need to have some strong vocational technical elements to our local education systems, because we do have a skills gap with a lot of our workers, and I think that goes hand in hand with job creation and helping the economy too. So we have to have some really strong VOTEC elements to our education system.
Okay, thank you.
The Department of Education may be one of those areas where the government gets a little heavy-handed. I think we have too much testing, and you talk to teachers and they complain about the excess teacher work. Either get them an assistant or let teachers teach. And I was talking to another teacher who complained that we do research in education and then we don't apply it. So we need to apply more of our research. I think we should have grants for teacher training and have the whole burden is on the teachers, and they need to be able to teach, and they need to be able to teach well. And instead of just closing down school districts when they can't work, help them get people in there and get money in there and good teachers and help them survive. I don't think there's a kid in this country who is not teachable. I've seen experiments where they take a group of inner city at-risk kids and put them in little suits and put them in schools, and they do just great. So it can be done, and it's the will to do it, and we should.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is my final question then before we go on to closing statements, and there's so many things we could talk about, but I have a lot of questions about environmental issues, but we'll just put it down into one. And there's a lot of concern with climate change. What does it mean? Does it exist? And what should it mean for American policy? So how do you feel about climate change and what direction we should be taking as a country to respond to it? All right.
Is that?
I believe we start with Ms. Hampton this time.
You know, I look at this issue and say, let's just say hypothetically climate change isn't a thing, not whether it is or is not happening and whether humankind is causing it or it's a natural cycle. Just, what if you've never heard of it or don't have to consider it? We know that petroleum is not a renewable resource, and we will run out someday, maybe not in my lifetime, but I have a 2-year-old grandson, and it's likely that it might happen in his lifetime, and I care about that. So why not try to develop energy sources that are renewable? That just also happen to not pollute the air and water and soil. And why not try to conserve and move toward energy efficiency? All of those things will ultimately lower prices and create jobs and protect our children and our grandchildren. And if we just happen to affect climate in a positive way, then that's a great bonus. But all of these, it all comes back to money. We have all of these powerful oil lobbyists, and that industry is really working towards something that is not sustainable. And they're trying to convince us that that the renewables and conservation and those things are not the route to go, but it doesn't even make sense. And so it just comes down to money. To me, every issue that we're looking at really comes down to money, because there is some lobbyist somewhere representing some special interest that is trying to keep the powerful people happy, and we're not being represented. We're not being taken care of.
All right, I see a lot of nodding over there.
Yeah, I think we should go full speed ahead on renewable energy, not only to affect the climate, but to get better renewable energy. Once you have solar panels working and installed, they're expensive to install. I have them on my roof, but my July electric bill was $0.75 from Ameren, 75 cents. So with all that energy, I mean, we can desalinize water, irrigate more crops. I mean, they have a drought in California. Wouldn't they like a lot of nice fresh water out there? I mean, and we think about it, it's amazing what you can do with unlimited energy and fully on coal, oil, gas, not even gas. We won't even need it. So yeah, I think we should go full steam ahead, and the climate should definitely benefit. It's going to take a long, long time. I think we should also be sequestering carbon to put back kind of what we took out and take the CO2 out of the air. But there's full speed ahead.
Okay.
We were down the
get the
boot
gist of
heel
it.
and it's windy down there.
Mhm.
Why not a wind farm?
All right. Do you have any? Okay, we'll move on to our closing statements then.
Okay.
And we'll have 2 minutes for those, if you want the full 2 minutes. And we're going to start with Miss. Well, you could keep, but do you want to keep it to a minute? That's what we agreed on. Okay. You both get so wound up. So we'll start then with Miss Stocker.
Okay, well, when under the Clinton administration, you may remember that he had a good economy, and we had a surplus budget when he left office. The Roosevelt administration was able to pull the country out of a devastating depression with works programs and job programs that helped people till they get on their feet. And after World War II, the country invested in education with the GI Bill. It was the best investment this country ever made because the economy boomed. They invested in infrastructure with the Interstate Highway Bill, and that grew the economy to prosperity and paid off that massive war debt. It can be done. We don't have to fuss about the budget and cut every little job and hurt people and cut jobs and structure. The government can and should work for the people, and we need to restore that. We need to restore opportunities, and vote for Barbara Stocker on November 4th.
Well, you know, you've only had just a few minutes to get to know us tonight, so I encourage you all to visit our websites, Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, and I especially invite you to also visit those same social media accounts of the candidates that were not here this evening. I just want to say, as a member of a movement, not of a party, that I want to encourage you, and I want to say that independents are able to speak for us. And the most important issue facing our country is that massive money interests are pulling the strings. So no matter what issue is most important to any of us, until we have campaign finance reform and undo Citizens United, really none of those issues are going to matter, because they're not going to be addressed in a significant way. Our division along political lines plays right into the hands of the people who are the power brokers, those who hold the purse strings and control the puppets in Congress. We must change the way we elect representatives, and we do that by getting the control of money out so we can decide how we want to be governed. But we have to start by saying that I'm going to take responsibility as a citizen. I'm going to be educated and informed as a voter, and I will use my voice, because it is time to change the national conversation. And we do that one conversation at a time. we can change the national conversation. We, the people, are what make this country great. We always have. We always have been. And, you know, we must work together to make our local communities strong. And it's really time to regain what I call the soul of our nation. You know, billionaires just cannot be allowed to continue to buy Congress. And the will of the people must prevail for us to be able to go forward. So this November, I say, have courage. Vote for an independent. Vote for Terry Hampton. Let's cut those strings. Thank you so much for being here. And I know that the baseball game. See, that's how much sports mean to me. I'm so sorry.
You had 5
I'm
seconds
so
to
sorry.
spare. You did good. You did
5
good.
seconds to spare, and I'm sparing to the Cardinals in doing it.
No, you didn't. You didn't at all. So, Toby, we have anything else?
No.
All right, so that concludes tonight's candidates forum. Let's thank our last two candidates.